Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for the nice warm words and the nice welcome. As said, I'm a great TEDx fan and HHL alumni, so I opted for this special occasion for a not too light topic. So I'd like to talk to you about strategy and strategic thinking. I think nowadays strategy is more or less everywhere, right? If you go out, read the papers, have a talk with other people, it's strategy everywhere. You need a strategy for everything. You have a strategy in politics, in sports, in business, everywhere. I would say it's quite an inflationary use of the word strategy, and that does not necessarily help to really understand what a strategy is, to define and execute it successfully. So, what is a strategy? Most people refer to a strategy as a long-term, comprehensive plan. You build something like a goal, then you align your steps towards this goal, then you run past it, and the more comprehensive and the more long-term in nature, the more it is called a strategy. And if you ask, for example, Google or Wikipedia, they come up with the same notion. It's a general, overall plan, long-term in nature. I would like to challenge that notion. I think in our times of constant change, a strategy needs to be much more than just a long-term plan. And that comes for two reasons. The first reason is our times are complex, super complex. There are more than 8 billion people in this world. You have news everywhere, tons of them, literally at your hand at every time. It is hardly possible to calculate for all these news, for all this data, and build a plan around it. The idea of comprehensiveness in such a world like ours, in our times, is oftentimes simply illusionary. And second, our times are changing. I mean, there are even panels like these that discuss the biology of change, very dynamic. The world changes super fast. There's so much change that it's hardly possible to foresee the next few weeks or months. So it is nearly impossible to really foresee the coming years. Hence, the long-term nature of a plan is oftentimes simply over-optimistic. In our times, in our world of constant change, strategy and strategic thinking definitely have to be more than a long-term and comprehensive plan. Before we dive into the question of, so what are the ingredients of a successful plan, successful strategy for our time, I think it's worth to take one step back and see if there are other definitions in the textbooks that offer a better approach than the comprehensiveness and long-term nature. One textbook I particularly like is from Henry Mintzberg. It's called Strategy Safari. And in his book Strategy Safari, he offers 5 different ideas of what a strategy actually is. He comes along with the idea of a plan, that's for sure. He also comes along with the idea of a ploy, of a pattern, of a position, of a perspective, and some others. And looking at these definitions, they very often miss usefulness. If a strategy is basically a pattern, so what emerged in the past, you know, I look back, I see the pattern, then I know what strategy I was following, then this is simply not helpful. It is not instructive at all. It is just descriptive. And I don't want to go along all the various definitions of strategy. I just want to make my point again. Typical definitions of strategy are not useful for our times. The most popular one as strategy, as a long-term comprehensive plan, is just not sufficient. So, again, to my question, what comprises a strong contemporary strategy in our modern times of constant change? To get a bit closer to this question, I would like to make you familiar with the situation that took place in 1997. Actually, 1 year after Henry Mintzberg first published his book, Strategy Safari. And I would like to introduce you to a person, which is Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov is one of the greatest chess players of all times. And it is not the guy in the upper part of the picture looking quite excited. It's the guy in the lower right part of the picture with his heads in his hands. So Garry Kasparov is one of the greatest chess players of all times. He became the youngest world chess champion ever in 1985 and defended this title in over 15 consecutive years. He holds one of the highest rankings ever. He is a best-selling author from topics in sports to politics to artificial intelligence. And I think for several reasons he's well known as one of the greatest strategists. So in this situation, on this specific day in 1997, Kasparov was playing Deep Blue in an official champions match. Deep Blue in those days was the strongest chess computer available in the world, programmed by IBM. And not only was he playing Deep Blue in the official World Chess Championship, he lost it. The World Chess Championship comprised 6 games, and he lost the total series 3.5 to 2.5. He lost 1 match, the rest was drawn. For the sake of drama, people oftentimes say this is the very moment when Kasparov realizes he will lose this match and the audience realizes he will lose this match. I doubt that. If you take a proper look at the position, most likely this is not the moment when he realized he will lose it, but nevertheless, he lost it. And this moment in time typically is taken in talks like this, in the media and other things, to make the way, to pave the way for the rise of artificial intelligence. I read an article 2 years ago that was already 2022 saying in 1997 Kasparov versus Deep Blue when AI came into the limelight. And I totally understand why this makes a super nice story and a super nice opening. Today I'd like you to focus on a different aspect of this moment. I'd like you to focus on the matches before. It is obviously it was not the first time Kasparov played the machine. And if this was the first time he lost against the machine, how come he did not lose the matches before? There are several reasons, several drivers for the strength of the machine. I don't want to introduce you to all and each of them. But one for sure is that the machine in those days was able to calculate around 1,000 moves a second. 1,000 moves a second. No one is able to calculate 1,000 moves a second. Garry Kasparov is not able to calculate 1,000 moves a second. He was not able to calculate 1,000 moves a second the day before, the week before, the year before. So maybe the interesting question is not why did he lose this game, but why did he draw and win the others? And I think that has a lot to do with strategy and how Kasparov and other professional chess players think about strategy and how they form their strategic approach. And that's why this is such a great opening for a strategic discussion as well. The first thing we need to realize is that it is a general misconception that professional chess players calculate a lot of moves in advance at all. I know I received this question a lot when I was a chess player. Other chess players received it, hey, Stephan, how many moves do you calculate in advance? Is it like 10, 20, 30, 40? It's all wrong. No one's doing that. It's maybe a handful. You only calculate the specific moves in a specific position for two reasons. One reason is there's a threat, so you have to react. And the other is to make sure that you don't make an initial mistake. But typically, you make your moves according to your strategy in your head. All matches in chess begin with the idea of a mid or end game. You think about your opening, you think about the end game. You make a move, you think about the end game. You are constantly thinking about whatever I do, how will this turn out in the very end of the game? And second, whatever opening system you choose, you have a specific set of motives and measures in your head that you use. And you know that there are several moves that are theoretically possible, but you won't do that move now anyway because it neither fits to one of your moves nor your measures in that system, nor helps you to come to that specific end game you want to end with. So in the end, Kasparov thinks, like every other great chess player, the game from the end. And that is something that the machine doesn't do. Helps him not to have to calculate each and every move. He's just very, very categorical in terms of, I don't focus on that, I just do that. Maybe one example. A very famous opening or defense is the King's Indian defense. There is hardly any chance to run a direct attack on your opponent's king as long as pawns have not exchanged. So as long as pawns have not exchanged in that game, no professional chess player will ever think about attacking the opponent's king. Very categorical, very clear motives, very clearly thought from the end. Kasparov used to say, and I think that is very helpful, he used to say, tactics are for the very moment when I have to do something, when I have to react. And my strategy is for the moment when I don't have to do something, when there's no immediate need to react, because then I follow whatever is necessary to end up with my end game. So from my point of view, what are the top 5 ingredients of a successful strategy and strategic thinking in times of constant change? First, please don't call every little plan or idea a strategy. There are reasons why there are different words for plans, ideas, and strategy. If you call every little idea a strategy, the idea of strategy loses its power, its communicational power, and the other stuff as well. Good reasons why there are different words. Second, you need a detailed and immovable target picture. It's the opposite way around of planning. Yes, planning involves target pictures as well, and yeah, strategy involves planning in the end as well. But typically, you come from a rather fuzzy picture. You draw a picture in the future, we think this could be the way it ends, and then you have very detailed steps towards it. In times of change, it has to be the other way around. You need a very detailed and immovable target picture, and you can be fuzzy with the steps towards it, because you have to adapt and change them all the time anyway. Third, categorical thinking and acting. no compromises. If you start thinking about other motives leading you to other end games, the enormous complexity of our words will simply eat your strategy. You will come to no conclusion and to no ends. The idea of no compromises is super strong. In today's boardrooms, when you hear about strategies and you hear about plans, you also hear a lot about the analytics behind it. In the complex and ever-changing world of our times, it is difficult to put a valid analysis behind everything. A good analyst knows what is possible to analyze and what is not. A good strategist knows what is possible to know and what is not. And that brings us to my third point. A strategy in times of change comprises the need to believe. It's unavoidable that in every strategic process you come to the point where you lack the necessary next analysis and the necessary final input or knowledge to make a final decision. You will come to a point when there is a need to believe. And with the need to believe, there's always the acceptance to fail. But even more, stop boiling the ocean with the 10th, the 20th, and the 30th analysis. There is a point when analysis is just not doing it anymore, but you have to move anyway, and a strategy comprises need to believe. Because fifth, a strategy, as Kasparov said, shows how to act when you don't have to react. A strategy does not help when there's an immediate threat, when there's an immediate need to do something. That is tactics. That is short term. That is, I have to do something now. A strategy is the compass that helps you to navigate through change, even though you don't have to react to immediate threat of opponents or anyone else. I hope this was a fruitful and insightful talk for you. I hope you take something away from that, and happy to have a talk afterwards. Thank you so much.